Train the muscles, not the joints.
Motion. Welcome back to Natural Glam Bodybuilding, and today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how hard should you train, because that's always the age-old question, isn't it? But the first thing I want to do is point you towards my Rumble channel, where I just uploaded another workout vlog. So you can get to my Rumble channel by clicking in the description. There is a link to my Rumble channel there, so make sure you subscribe to there as well, because I am uploading weekly vlogs on there. Now, if you guys are interested in a podcast, because I've had lots of you guys ask me to do a podcast, I am doing a podcast on Patreon right now. So if you want to sign up on Patreon, you can get access to the podcast, and I'm doing at least one episode per week on there as well. So yeah, that's all I got to say about that. If you guys want that extra content, it's there. On Rumble, it's free. And if you want to contribute to support my work, you can go on Patreon and actually get access to a podcast and other only Patreon accessible content. Mountain. The thing I'm going to talk about today is something I've been contemplating lately, and I think it's something that most of you who have been in this game for a period of time, you revisit from time to time. Because sometimes you get wrapped up in the standard sort of workout program where you're doing 5 sets or 10 sets or 15 sets or whatever it is to failure, or with whatever intensity that you deem fit in your program at the time, and you get results from that. And then at some point it stops working. So we've talked about different ways to stimulate the muscle and to try to get it to adapt, to get bigger, to get stronger. But the one thing that I will say is that laziness sometimes, or priorities, you call it priorities, like sometimes life gets in the way, whatever, sometimes gets in the way of you pushing the limit to the next level of what it takes for your body to adapt. So I'm not saying you have to do endless amount of sets or endless amount of weight, but sometimes if your body's not adapting, it might be because you're not doing enough. And I'm not saying that your diet shouldn't be something you look at, or your sleep and that sort of thing, but once you start pushing more sets, more exhaustion, you start to see that maybe your body, and again, this is maybe your body is capable of adapting to it, assuming that you have the food and the sleep necessary in order to do so. So I'm not saying, I'm not pushing for the overtraining thing, and I'm not saying there's no such thing as overtraining, because of course there is. But what I am going to say is that you want to make sure that that overtraining limit isn't mentally induced, that you're not limiting yourself based on what has worked in the past, but you're not necessarily pushing through and finding out what works now. So what I'm doing right now is I'm doing some volume training, like 10 sets of a certain rep range. And I know the standard German volume sort of training is like 10 sets of 10 or whatever, and you're supposed to use whatever given weight you can use for 10 sets of 10. I'm playing around with it. Sometimes I'm doing 10 sets of 8, sometimes I'm doing 10 sets of 5 or 10 sets of 15 or 20, depending on what exercise I'm doing. And my rest time is varying between 45 seconds to about 2 minutes, depending on the type of exercise I'm doing. If I'm doing squats, obviously, and I'm doing 10 sets of 10, say with like 405 or something like that, I'm gonna probably be taking 2 minutes to 2.5 minutes rest in between sets, depending on what I feel I need, right? So if you're confused about rest times, I have a lot of videos on rest times in the sets and reps playlist, and therefore you can get a better idea of how I change my rest times up depending on what type of exercise I'm doing. But one thing that's happening from doing this is I'm feeling a lot more pumpy and lumpy. I'm getting pretty sore in different ways than usual, so that's what I wanted. I wanted to stimulate the body in a way that it has not been stimulated in a long time. It has not been stimulated in this particular way, and it is muscle soreness as far as muscle breakdown, which is what you want. You want that body to say, shit, I need to rebuild this structure. Kind of like when you break a bone, the bone where it breaks is actually stronger than it was before, right? And I've broken lots of bones, so I know. It's the same thing with muscles, right? Once it breaks down in a smart way, strategic way, not a tear the muscle off the bone type of way, you actually recover and become stronger from that. So this is why I'm incorporating a little bit more volume right now for a change, which is why I advocate you guys doing 3-day split programs or 4-day split programs, or variations of programs from time to time, because again, even if your body does have a tendency for something to work for a period of time, there is also the never-ending reinvention of yourself that happens, where all of a sudden the thing that worked forever is no longer working. So that's really what I wanted to say, is that don't be afraid to push into your limits safely. I mean, doing an extra bunch of sets using safe exercise form and smart rep ranges, not doing 1 rep maxes constantly and that sort of thing, can lead you to some extra growth at certain times. So don't limit yourself all the time. Like, really pay attention. Sometimes you need more stimulation and sometimes you need less. And it's about really paying attention to what is needed. And sometimes you have to experiment and find out first and foremost, right? And another thing is, something I've talked about before, is when you are mentally stimulated by your training, as far as you're interested in finding out what the results of your experiment are, this naturally can create more motivation and therefore stimulate more muscle growth. So yeah, I'm having a good time with this right now. I'm having just a fun time just revisiting what I feel about the volume that my body needs right now. And by going through that experiment, I'm having more fun training. So that's really what it's about, right? I mean, if you're having more fun training, you are going to get more results in the long run. And at the same time, you're always learning something else about your body and how it's responding right here and now. Mountain. So yeah, if you need to increase the volume, don't be surprised. Sometimes you need to increase the volume, sometimes you need to lower it down, but don't limit yourself all the time. Really find out and experiment and see what you need to do. So yeah, in the future, I may introduce a volume program, specifically messing around with the different rep ranges and the different muscle groups. So I'll let you guys know if I do that. If I do that. Thanks a lot for watching. And if you need to get a hold of me, just go to naturalglandbodybuilding.com. And thanks a lot to the Patreon supporters. These guys are making this content possible. Honestly, I really probably couldn't afford to do this content if it wasn't for the Patreon supporters. So I really appreciate these guys. So thanks a lot, guys. And take care for now. Natural Land.